You are 4 years old, and you are already the King of France. Not king in a bedtime story, not king in a game your friends invented. King in the way that means grown men fall to their knees the moment they hear your name. Your father was Louis XIII, and on the 14th of May, 1643, he died and left the crown of France sitting on your head. Somewhere in the world today, a 4-year-old is still learning to tie his shoes. You are that age, and you already have a throne, a kingdom, and a cardinal named Mazarin whispering instructions in your ear. He is about to teach you the hardest lesson of your childhood. Everyone around you wants a piece of what is technically yours. And some of them are willing to break into your bedroom to prove it. This is what it actually felt like to grow up as Louis XIV, the boy who became the longest reigning monarch in European history. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why he built the most extravagant palace on the planet, and why he needed it just to survive. Your mother, Anne of Austria, becomes regent and rules France in your name. Beside her stands Cardinal Mazarin, an Italian-born statesman that half the country resents on sight. You do not understand politics yet. You are busy with toy soldiers in a nursery, while outside the palace walls, real soldiers are quietly choosing sides against your family. You are 9 years old when Paris finally explodes, in 1648. The nobles hate Mazarin, the judges hate the taxes, and everyone hates being governed by people they consider outsiders. This uprising gets a name, the Fronde, borrowed from the slingshots Parisian mobs used to shatter the windows of anyone loyal to your crown. You do not fully understand yet what a slingshot through a window means for a 9-year-old king. You are about to find out. You are 10 years old, in January of 1649, when your family flees Paris in the dead of night. You are bundled into a carriage in the dark and driven out to a half-empty chateau at Saint-Germain. There are not enough beds for everyone. You, the King of France, sleep on straw. Cold, hungry, and frightened, hiding from the very city that is supposed to bow to you. Ask yourself something for a second. What does it do to a child to learn, this early, that the crown does not protect you from anything? You are 12 years old, in February of 1651, when the worst night of your childhood arrives. A mob storms into your palace, the Palais Royal, and pushes straight into your bedroom in the middle of the night. They want proof, with their own eyes, that you have not been smuggled out of the city. You lie perfectly still and pretend to be asleep, eyes shut, heart hammering against your ribs. Strangers stand over your bed and stare at you like you are an animal in a cage. Then, finally, they leave. You never forget this night for the rest of your life. Historians agree that this single, humiliating moment does more to shape the ruler you become than almost anything else in your childhood. You are 15 years old when you are finally, officially crowned, in the cathedral at Reims, in June of 1654. Anointed, crowned, king before God, not just king by an accident of birth. But being crowned is not the same thing as being in charge. Mazarin still runs the country day to day. You are still, in every way that actually matters, a spectator sitting on your own throne. You are 22 years old when Cardinal Mazarin dies, in March of 1661. Every minister in the room expects you to appoint a new chief minister within the week, the way it has always worked. Instead, you shock every single one of them. You announce that there will be no chief minister, not now, not ever again. You will personally run every council, read every dispatch, sign every order yourself. Not one man in that room believes an unremarkable 22-year-old can actually pull this off. Within weeks, you prove every single one of them wrong. Let's pause here for a second and add it up. By 23, you have survived a childhood of exile, poverty, and a mob staring you down in your own bed. And you have just seized total, personal control over the most powerful kingdom in Europe. Everything that happens next, the wars, the palace, the mistresses, the crushing debt, all of it traces back to one decision made by a frightened boy who swore he would never again be at anyone's mercy. You start building Versailles, transforming your father's old hunting lodge into the most extravagant palace Europe has ever seen. Thousands of laborers dig, haul stone, and redirect entire rivers to feed fountains that only run when you happen to be walking past them. You are famously, supposedly quoted as once declaring, "The state, it is I." Historians now believe you probably never actually said it. The line shows up decades after your death, most likely invented by a writer trying to sum up your reign in 4 words. What you did say, recorded and verified, is something quieter and arguably more chilling. Every council, every ministry, every decision in France now runs through you personally, by design. At Versailles, you keep the most powerful nobles in France close, housed, fed, and entertained inside your own palace, where you can watch every one of them. The men who once forced you to hide in your own bed now spend their mornings competing for the honor of watching you get dressed. That is not an accident. That is the entire design of the palace. You take mistresses, first Louise de la Vallière, then the more ambitious Madame de Montespan, and the court watches every move like a soap opera with a national budget. Later in life, you marry, privately and without fanfare, a woman named Françoise d'Aubagne, the Marquise de Maintenon. In 1685, you revoke the Edict of Nantes, the law that had protected the religious freedom of French Protestants for nearly a century. Tens of thousands of Huguenots flee the country rather than convert, taking their skills, their businesses, and their money with them. War becomes the background noise of your entire reign. The War of Devolution, the Franco-Dutch War, the 9 Years' War, then finally the War of the Spanish Succession, one after another, decade after decade. When your grandson is offered the throne of Spain, you are said to have announced that the Pyrenees, the mountains separating France and Spain, no longer exist. It is a magnificent line. It is also a line that drags France into one more brutal, expensive war it can barely afford. Your treasury bleeds money into palaces and battlefields in roughly equal measure. Ask yourself this. If you had grown up terrified of losing control for even one night, would you ever be able to stop building walls, armies, and palaces to protect yourself? Now fast forward, decades of wars, decades of Versailles, decades of absolute rule. You are 72 years old, and grief starts arriving faster than you can absorb it. In April of 1711, your only surviving son, known as the Grand Dauphin, dies of smallpox. Less than a year later, in February of 1712, his son and daughter-in-law both catch measles and die 6 days apart from one another. Weeks after that, their eldest surviving boy dies of the same disease. In under 12 months, 3 generations of your direct heirs are gone. The only survivor is a 2-year-old great-grandson, saved only because his governess refuses to let the royal doctors anywhere near him with their bleeding knives. That 2-year-old will one day rule France as Louis XV. You will not live to see it. You are 76 years old, in August of 1715, when a pain starts in your leg. Doctors call it sciatica. It is not sciatica. Over roughly 3 weeks, the pain spreads, the flesh blackens, and everyone around you understands exactly what is happening, even if no one says it out loud. You, a man who spent 72 years insisting France could not survive without total control from the center, gather your court and your 5-year-old heir to deliver final instructions on how to govern after you are gone. On the 1st of September, 1715, 4 days before what would have been your 77th birthday, you die at Versailles. The palace you built specifically so you would never again be at the mercy of a mob, a noble, or a cold, half-empty chateau. Contemporaries recorded your last words as, "I am going, but the state will always remain." You reigned for 72 years. No other monarch in verified European history has ever ruled longer. Think about that arc for a second. A 4-year-old orphaned onto a throne he cannot defend. A boy who hides from a mob in his own bed. A man who turns that fear into 72 years of absolute control, a golden palace, and a legacy that still shapes how France sees itself today. So here is the real question. Was Louis XIV a builder, or was he simply a man running, for his entire life, from a bedroom he was once trapped in as a child? Tell me what you think in the comments. Every fact, every date, and every quote in this video is sourced and linked in the description below, so you can verify all of it yourself. Before we get to the rest of those sources, I want to point you to the book that shaped a lot of this episode. It is called The Sun King, by Nancy Mitford, and it is still one of the most vivid, readable portraits of Louis XIV and his court ever written. The link is in the description if you want to go deeper, and it costs you nothing extra to use it. If stories about real people thrown into impossible power at impossible ages are what you come here for, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.